Hi, my name is Ian Paul Owens, and this is my reading response for week one of Diversity and Global Awareness here at Hampton University. I think it's also awesome that we are able to respond to our weekly readings in a multiple of ways. Not everybody learns the same, so it's awesome that we can choose to make a YouTube video or make a mind map or do a PowerPoint or use Canva. I think it's really great and allows us to establish or not regurgitate, but allows us to express what we've read in a multiple of ways. So like I said before, my name is Ian Paul Owens. I live here in New York City and I work on Wall Street at the New York Stock Exchange. Our office currently has multiple offices in New York and several around the world. So I'm really excited for this class because I think it'll help me give me more tools to really navigate this professional landscape that as I continue on my career at the stock exchange and other businesses like that, as the world grows smaller through technology and connection. Just like music is a multicultural language, money can be that too. And so we also just started a thing called the New York Stock Exchange Institute, where we are connecting with a lot of other countries and talking about their exchanges and the stock market and how that can be used and access to capital, all that stuff. We've had delegations from the Philippines, from Mexico. We got some African nations coming up. So we really are a very multicultural place of employment. So this class can only be a benefit to me. One of the first things that I read in this week's readings that really stood out to me was their definition of diversity. They were saying diversity can be defined as acknowledging, understanding, accepting, and valuing differences among people with respect to age, class, race, ethnicity, gender, disabilities, etc. I think it's really important for people to understand that it's not about tolerating it. It's about acknowledging, understanding, accepting, and valuing. You have to realize that all four of those components are important. It's not just about like, oh, we have some diverse people, but it's acknowledging them, understanding them, really engaging with them, accepting it, and seeing the value in the differences, and knowing that it's only going to be a benefit to everyone. Also, that diversity is not about differences among groups, but rather differences amongst individuals. I'm an African American male, but my African American male experience can be similar to a lot of others, but it's also can be different, and that you can use the surface characteristics to find a starting point, but you have to engage with me personally to really know me and understand my characteristics and my individual and what makes me unique. I think one of the biggest things that they said was organizations need to develop, implement, and maintain ongoing training. It's not a one day session, and that's true. Just like you always upgrade technology to make sure you have the latest software protection, you have to do the same when it comes to diversity and inclusion. The world is changing every day, and things that were used to be taboo are now becoming normal, and so you just have to constantly be aware of it and constantly stay up to date on it. I think my organization does a really good job of that. I think they're constantly aware of things changing and constantly trying to make sure that they are being respectful and understanding, and not only just American culture, but like other cultures that we involve. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a LGBTQ dating app called Grindr that went public, and they kind of took over the stock exchange. It was just like any other IPO. They had like a really celebration out front. They were on the trading floor, ringing the opening bell, and they kind of sent out a company wide release and was like, hey, they're going to be on here. There's going to be a lot of LGBTQ plus members. Please be respectful of pronouns and all this stuff. And they didn't have to do that, but it was just kind of like, hey, everyone deserves access to capital, and we're dealing with a lot of different cultures and different communities that are a part of the stock exchange. They are our family. They are like our friends now. So just be respectful, and I think that's great. And they had a great time, and so, but I think that's one of the things is that you never know who you're going to encounter, and so you have to make sure that everyone who's a part of your company is up to date and understands that it's not about the differences, it's about how all these differences make up the entire world, and we all do our part to make it go around. um I think that it's also great with my company in that, as we expand into different markets, it's really great that we have employees who can help. I think that's one thing they see as a benefit is that, as we expand into China and as we expand into Africa, we have employees who are like, hey, if you need help understanding this market and navigating this market, I'm happy to step up because I understand what's considered taboo. I understand what might be considered offensive. And it really empowers our employees to be like, hey, I can use my background, my culture to help this company and organization grow. So I think my company is in a great position where they like the diversity and they understand the value that it can bring to our organization as a whole. One of the things that I read that really does make a lot of, that really resonated with me was that humans judge each other on surface level characteristics such as race or gender in the absence of additional information. I think we're a very visual society. I definitely think that happens a lot. Even small things like when I go to work every day, like I don't have to dress up, but every day I'm in a suit and it helps people know that like, hey, I work here, but I'm also just like I'm in a position of power here. I'm not like some janitor. I'm not like don't make assumptions. And it was like, and I did something that I've done always. I my experience as a black man living in America, like I always make sure my mother always made sure she was like, you need to always make sure you look respectable. And it was like, because they'll make assumptions about you, and that could lead down like crazy paths that you don't want to go. And it sucks that that happens, but I've understand that. I understand we're a visual society. So every time I go to work, I make sure that I'm dressed up and looking cute because we will make those judgments until we interact with somebody and find out other things. We will make judgments. They also were talking about how people, if you have characteristics that don't identify you, if you have non-visual characteristics that don't identify you as part of a majority group, people will be surprised when they find out you are. So I am 41, and a lot of people on my team are 20 and 30. So when I first got there, they make a lot of boomer jokes and all this stuff. So when they found out that I was 41, a lot of them were shocked and they were like, oh. And I didn't take offense to anything, but now they kind of look at me like I've had the positions of my manager and I've had a lot more. And so now a lot of people come to me with a lot more questions because I've done this job that we're doing. I've done it in different variations in other industries and other companies. And so now it's like I'm still a team member, but I'm not somebody who's just fresh out of college like a lot of them are. And this is their first big high profile gig. I've been around the block, and so now knowing that, they're like, oh, so now they're looking at me at a little differently. They know they can come to me and ask questions that may not necessarily be uh, um, that have to do with this current job because I'm the last one on the team, but in general, like how to approach this because I've done this in other, in other places. Um, Oh, I also thought it was. I took a sociology course a couple of semesters ago, and one thing that the readings this week mentioned that they mentioned as well was that Asian, Hispanic, and Black Americans belong to a collectivist culture, where Anglo Americans belong to an individualist culture. That's certainly true. I feel like whenever there's a group project, it's much easier for like minorities like myself to get in and really come find that camaraderie to get the project done. There's a saying in our culture, it takes a village. And it was like, yes, it does. We've got like cousins and aunties. And, if I got in trouble in the neighborhood, I, that neighbor considered auntie, she would call my mother. And it's just like that. We do come from it's really about the culture and the community where I feel like, Anglo Americans don't really have that, and they are used to like working on their own. But I've always looked at it as a benefit that like I can get into group projects and immediately be like, oh, hey, how are you doing? You're new. This is here. Let's get this job done. Um, and it's also, and it's very true that underlying assumptions that surface level diversity, such as race, is indicative of deeper level differences, such as cognitive processes, schemas, differential knowledge base, different sets of experiences, different views of the world. That's true. And it was like, if I'm black and they're white, that's one difference. but those differences are definitely going to be different. Like my experiences growing up in the world are different than theirs. And just like if I have a coworker who's Indian or Chinese or Thai or Taiwanese, like our differences, the surface differences are there, but it's definitely going to let you know that they're deeper. There's going to be deeper differences, like different religions and how we grew up and our views on just ageism in different cultures and things like that. And like people still living with their parents and people being expected to move out and make it on their own. It's like we all have like I said before, it's like you can look at a person's race and like kind of use that to kind of know have a starting point. But then once you talk to the individual, you'll really find out. It's like, hey, like what's your experience? What's different? And that definitely helps when you're working group projects because you get different viewpoints, and that allows you to understand more of your customers and everyone that might come in contact with this product and how they might respond to it. Another thing that stood out to me and that I definitely understood was the support for the contention that Black supervisors are less directive and less likely to initiate interactions than white supervisors when working with predominantly white subordinates. So in my first earlier managerial roles, I was an African American in charge of a completely white team. And looking back on it, I could see myself being less to like directly have meetings with them and kind of be always second guessing myself, because if it was a mixed team, it was easier that if I felt I was being targeted or something, or if someone misunderstood something, there was somebody else who could acknowledge where I was coming or could see my point of view. And then with being on a white team, there's always the feeling of, they could band together and, not like the way that I manage. And I think that comes with age and more responsibility and just kind of more confidence. Now, like I could completely run a team no matter who they were. They could be all like gremlins and I'd be like, I'm fine talking to them. But reading that, it was interesting because I have been there and I understand that. Um, our our current president is female, and the president before her was female as well. There are several minority members in high C-suite positions of power. And coming into the stock exchange, it was very comforting to see that. I immediately felt that like, hey, I could give my all here and I will be rewarded on merit. Like it's a place that I can grow. And I think that's really good especially for new employees when they see that, when they come in and they see that there's women in positions of power and they see there's minorities in positions of power, you're immediately at ease because you feel like this is not quote unquote the old boys network. This is somewhere where inclusion and diversity is not going to be a hindrance. It's going to be something that they value and something that I can do my job, do it well, and I will get rewarded. And so that's a really good thing. And I think that I'm very happy to work here and happy to work in a place where there is no glass ceiling, as you're going to say it. It's you work, you do your job, and you will be compensated and rewarded accordingly. Um, there was something interesting. They were, I guess it was, and this is also this. A lot of these studies were like 1993, 1995. Allegretto and Arthur was 2001, and they were saying that lesbians. They were talking about like marketable skills and monetary gains that are like compensation. And they were saying lesbians will have lots of marketable skills because they don't see themselves being married to a heterosexual male breadwinner. So they're going to have marketable skills to make sure that they can support themselves and make sure that they can like continuously rise and gain adequate composition. But they were saying that gay men homosexual men won't have marketable skills because they can see themselves linking with another homosexual male breadwinner, which like I said before, a lot of these things are kind of out of date, I think, or a little not like they weren't referencing like current standards, because I think the current trend is like a lot of homosexual men have a lot of marketable skills and have a lot of disposable income and they are always educated and able to like get in positions of power because one, they're male, but also because they are reliant on themselves, and they've always been like, I've got to take care of myself. I need to make sure that I have the necessary credentials and necessary marketable skills. I think now, in just in my circle of friends and from what I've seen, there's a lot of gay homosexual men that do have marketable skills and are in being compensated very well. So I think that trend might have switched. But again, I mean, that's just coming from a personal view. So I'm interested to see like if there's any current data on that. This is just the first week, and so a lot of it was outlining a lot of studies and a lot of where a lot of these assumptions and a lot of where these base studies are coming from. I think it's really great to read all of this. Like I said before, this is the first week. So I could identify with a lot of these things and was like, yeah, that's very true. We do that. And I can see how that pertains to that. And so I'm excited for the more weeks to come. I'm excited to delve further into inclusion and diversity and how to just really make it something that doesn't have to be something that can be turned into second nature in the workplace. So thanks so much.